everybody, welcome back. It is your host, Morgan Kelly, your average theater kid, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest for today's episode. So please welcome to the pod, Cáitlín Burke. Cáitlín and I met about 2 years ago now when she came to my college to play Mother Abbess as a guest artist in our production of The Sound of Music. I was her Maria, and so we were able to get very close, and I'm so thankful that she was willing to sit down with me today. Now, keep in mind, we did record this while Cáitlín was in between teaching lessons at New York City's AMDA campus, so I will warn you, there are some music theater baddies absolutely tearing it up in the background. But regardless of that, please make sure to stick around to listen to Cáitlín's insight on the future of opera, life on the road, persevering through viral moments in the press, and how it's never too late to chase your dreams. Please welcome opera and music theater performer, mentor, and friend, Cáitlín Burke. Today on the pod, we have Cáitlín Burke. Hi!
Hi!
So
good to see you, Morgan.
Yes, thank you again so much for sitting down and being willing to do this with me.
Of course, anything for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm really looking forward to talking to you today. So, tell me about, I know a little bit about it because luckily, we'll get to this later, but we worked together a little bit. For listeners who don't know, tell me about your story and how did you first get into music and performing?
Yeah, good question. Going back, I'm smoking my fake cigarette, going way back into the archives. I first started with music, I think in church, and singing and playing piano, and then from the age of 5, I was taking piano lessons, very serious classical music, piano lessons, right? I was doing a lot of piano competitions and things like that. And I did that all the way through, but that also sort of led into this music world that I loved. And then when I was in high school, I had 2 friends. I didn't think I could do it, but they dragged me to audition for Fiddler on the Roof. So again, here comes the cigarette. I was a 16-year-old Golda in Fiddler on the Roof in high school. And then that was I think the theater bug when I actually got to do it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And my family is actually from New York City. My great uncle sang at the Met. My aunt was an actress. So when I was a kid, I was going to rehearsals with my aunt, and from when I was very little, maybe 6, 7, and I just thought, this is so cool. The rehearsal process. I loved being in the rehearsal room and seeing everybody with their show skirts and trying things on. And then I got to do it, in my high school a little bit, and then it just kind of came out of that. I was very involved in classical music as a young child. And then I went to undergrad on piano scholarship. And then while I was there for undergrad, I went to this great undergrad, Oakland University in Michigan, that was a very collaborative arts program. So, meaning I could audition for the plays, which I did a lot, and I did a ton of plays. Music people could audition for musical theater, they could audition for the plays, dancers could audition for the operas. I mean, it was very integrated, and I had great, great theater teachers there as well as great music teachers. And then I had to take a minor in another instrument other than piano. I was there on piano scholarship, so I always wanted to take voice lessons. When I was growing up, we just didn't have a lot of money, so my parents weren't able to put me in all of the music lessons I wanted to be in. So finally in my sophomore year of college, I got to take voice lessons, and I was thrilled, and that's kind of a late start for people, right? But yeah, that was sort of that's how I got into it and how I got into studying it formally and everything.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's so cool. I didn't know that you started in college. That is so
Isn't
cool.
that crazy?
Yes.
I know. I was so late compared to people,
Yeah.
I mean, I think 20 when I took my first real voice lesson.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh. That is nuts. That is so inspiring though.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Such a testament to yes, you can you can work hard, everyone trains, everyone is really dedicated, and then just some people just have it.
Yeah, and I think it's you can learn at any age.
Yes, it is
and
never
you
too
can
late.
Yeah, I mean literally you can, if you're 7 years old, you can still take voice lessons.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it was something I always wanted to do, but then actually getting to do it actually made me very excited about it because I didn't have it for so long,
Yes.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't this old hat.
Exactly.
Okay, here we go again.
Yeah,
So a different
totally.
teacher.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what, like throughout all your training with piano and now moving into voice, what drew you to opera and classical singing?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad took us to the opera all the time, and I just, with classical music, with piano and voice, I think there was something that I found in myself that I could express through music that was easier than words for me. So this and I think a lot of, people who sing or who are musicians can relate to this. There's this level that you're thinking on that is, for me, is so hard to transfer with words, but I can do it with music. I feel like piano, voice. I also love I kind of liked, I don't mean to make myself sound like a loner, but I did like going into practice rooms when I was a kid and just practicing. There was something about like the repetitive nature of piano. And when my uncle pointed this out to me when I was a kid, actually, I would like fight with my brother or with my cousin and my sister, and I would get so angry, and then I would go and I would give myself a timeout, I guess, and play piano, and I would come out like a different beast. It was like literally music tamed it. And my uncle said, he's like, you can be so angry and upset, and then you go play piano and you come out and you're like a different person. And I'm like, I know, he pointed it out, I didn't think about it, but I thought I work my thoughts and my feelings out in music. And something about piano was very tangible, and I could just kind of repeat and work all the feelings out. And I think, as a child, what a great thing to get to do, because you've got all these feelings. When you're a teenager, you have more feelings. When you're like a young adult, you have more. And if you can work that out in this constructive way that also in the end helps other people, you feel so good about yourself. Yeah. It's fantastic.
And I can only imagine that helps build such an emotional intelligence at a young age.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Totally, yeah. And a way to express, a way to get the feelings out and just make them known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if we're talking about, hold for somebody absolutely killing it. Okay. All right, so if we're talking about going through all of these things and really connecting with yourself and finding these emotion and expression through music, obviously that led you into college and having a collegiate, both in undergrad and then master's program career. I know quite a few high school students that are graduating and are going into either music or music theater programs in different programs across the country. What do you think the most, let's say the top three things that you really grasp and see as the most valuable things that you found from a higher education in music?
Yeah, meaning what you learn in college? Yeah.
Or what to look for in a program? Or...
Yeah, well, I think one thing, when I was a kid I was auditioning for piano performance programs, and I had I was kind of this perfectionist, and playing a wrong note would drive me crazy. and I did so many auditions as a pianist trying to get into programs, and it just wore me out. It really burned me out, and I was 17 years old or something, right? And I remember my grandmother, and I loved musical theater. I had done it in high school. I was like, I want to do musical theater, but again, we didn't have a lot of money, and my parents had put so much money into paying my piano lessons and things. And I thought, I feel this pressure, I've got to do piano. And so I was very upset about it. My grandmother said, just go in with piano. Yeah. It's college. You're not making your life decision right now. Yeah. Go in with piano. If you decide you want to change or you want to do musical theater later, do it. That's okay. And something about that took the pressure off of me, knowing that if you make this decision at age 17, you are not shackled to this one thing for the rest of your life. And trust me, even within that, your life just expands so much outside of that. So I think for myself too, at that age, decisions can just feel so like
the world's gonna end.
Yes, like the world's gonna end, like there's a giant burden, like if you sign this, you're signing your soul over to the devil, and you're totally not, right? So I think dive in and try stuff, but take some of that pressure off of yourself. Know that you have so many choices. And my piano teacher in college used to say this thing, because I did do piano and I did theater. I was really into plays. I love playwrights. I did musical theater. I did all of this stuff, and everybody was trying to get me to do one thing, right? And I'm like, I can't do one thing. I'm just too, I get a little bored doing one thing. And I remember my piano teacher saying, he's like, you know, you make your life rich, make your experience rich, make who you are rich. He's like, my job is to give you 200 colors to paint with, so that you're not just painting in black and white, right? So make your palette colorful and go for everything, try everything, right? And I think college is the place to do that. We forget when we're in college, we think there's so much pressure on us to do everything exactly right. And there is, but you don't have that pressure of kind of the real world coming down on you and saying, you can't do this, or this was bad, or this is good. This is where you get to try things out, experiment with things. And it's a safe space to do it. So go for it. I mean, try out what you need, figure out who you are, figure out what you want to do. And you don't have to have an answer by the end of your 4 years, but I think you'll regret it more if you don't try out the stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's college is the place to grow, right?
Yes.
Like, it's the place where, like, yes, you're going for what you're passionate about, but it's also, like, I was, like, talking with another guest who will be on the podcast when this comes out, of just how important it is to take that time to find what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, especially in this business. Like, what are you good at? What is your brand? What is your identity? Who are you as a person? And how does that affect your art? Like, it is such I love that you're, like, saying all of these kind of, like, reassuring things of this isn't the end of the world, and that it's going to be
not at all.
okay.
It's the beginning of the world, actually.
Yeah, I've been feeling that a lot with
I'm sure.
graduation.
Yeah.
So you've performed all across the country in various shows and operas and concerts, but the Broadway world knows you best, and I know you best from your role of Mother Abbess in the national tour of Sound of Music in 2015, and again a few years ago when you were a guest artist at my college and we got to perform in the show together. So what about that role keeps you coming back for more?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you were fantastic. I mean, oh my God. I mean, can I just brag about you for a second? You were so fantastic. You know, I'm getting a little emotional because I remember seeing you just like grow in the short time, really. It was still a short time, you know, when we were there together. But boy, I mean, I had such a great time doing it with you because you also were so real about it. And I was like, I really feel like I'm just freaking talking to Maria right now, you know? And you just stepped up, and it's such a hard role to do. Maria is a hard freaking role to do. And you stepped up and you just led that cast, and you led that show, and you led me. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah. And I just saw you grow so much in like 4 weeks or something like that. And you just performed it so beautifully and so real. And I could not help but react to everything you were doing because it was so genuine and so real. So anyway, I know like I'm not supposed to be bragging about you, but I'm gonna brag because I had such a great time, and I feel like I made a good friend too, and now we're stuck with each other for the rest of our lives.
Yes. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I look back at those pictures, like I'm building websites and things like that.
Yeah,
and those
yeah.
production photos are my favorite production photos
Yes.
ever. Of like the two of us at the end of favorite
things.
And
It's
just
so fun.
And the biggest, I had the most fun with you. And
Oh, good.
My family loved watching us together,
So
and it was just. Yeah,
it was
such a fantastic addition. I'm so glad that you were able to come out.
I'm so glad I was too.
Yes.
I had a great time. And I love, I like Darren's such a good friend of mine too. And that he has this like vision of bringing in people to get to work with students and vice versa. And now we have this connection that's just going to keep going. And it's so important. Speaking of sort of like, back to the other question too about what to do in school, make those connections, like be with people. I was never somebody who was like very good at kissing up to people or doing still I'm not good at that, like the part of the business that's like the schmoozy part of the business, right? But I always thought what I am good at is making friends. I am good at talking to people. I enjoy people. I'm also an introvert at the same time, which is kind of weird, but what I can do is like I can make friends, and I feel like making experiences like that. Anyway, back to Mother Abbess now. So the thing that keeps bringing me back to that role is it's just such a deep role. I think also as I get older, it gets better and deeper and richer and everything. And the singing too, the music in the show is so brilliant all the way throughout. I mean, people forget that all of that, the chant in the beginning is like composed by Rodgers and Hammerstein, because it sounds like Monteverdi, or it sounds like something else that's very complex music. And I love that. That was so great to get to do actually in a long run, because the music is so complex. And then the challenge of singing songs like Climb Every Mountain, and even Favorite Things that seems maybe a little easier to sing, but Climb Every Mountain it's just always the kind of good vocal challenge you always want. Like you just have to stay in shape for it. And I think the thing that brings me back is it is never the same. I mean, that song, it's just never the same. I've done it so many times. I've done now over 700 performances of the show, and it's just never the same. Depending on who you're doing it with too. I did it at Paper Mill also. I can't remember if it was before we went to Boise, but I was fortunate because I got to learn the show. I had never done Sound of Music before, not in high school or anything, and I got to learn it with Jack O'Brien, who is 3-time Tony Award winner. He just directed Shucked on Broadway. He directed our Sound of Music, and I was in the original cast. So what he would do was he would do a morning of table work. We would all sit there, and he is one of our national treasures for doing table work like that. He comes from a theater background. So we would analyze these scenes, and when I say analyze, I mean like every single word of the scene, and we would sit there and go through everything. Why did somebody call you this name? Why are you doing this? Why are you choosing to say this? Why this pronoun, not this pronoun, right? And then we would just put the whole thing up on its feet. Whatever we had done table work in the morning on, we would put it up on its feet in the afternoon. This was, of course, like a multi-billion-dollar production. So we had like 4 weeks. Maria and the kids had 5 weeks, and we were there from 10 to 6 every day with 1 day off. So that's great. And then you're working with Andy Einhorn, who is the music director, who is Audra McDonald's musical director and just directed Gypsy on Broadway. You're just working with and Danny Mefford, who is the choreographer, and Jane Greenwood, who is the costume designer, who is like legend, right? 50, 60, 70 Broadway shows. Yeah. So you've got all these people who are just putting everything into this production. It also bumps you up. You're like, well, I better step up if I'm working with these legends, right? But I was so fortunate to get to learn that show like that. Who gets that? I mean, you usually learn these shows in high school, and then you you go through it really quickly. So Jack really infused that whole production. He said, I'm going to give you so much stuff to work with that it's going to last you the 2 years that this thing is going to be on tour, or longer if it's going to be on tour. And I didn't realize it, but he was totally right, because were a great creative team. They would come out and every 2 months and check up on the show, move things around so that we wouldn't get bored, put a little new blocking in here and there. And so that really kept it fresh for us too. So, and then you've just got the role, which is so rich and wise. I know. Maybe you'll get to play her too. Like, really cool. You go through all of the roles. You do the Baroness. Oh my God! I think you're too old for Friedrich, but
when this national tour in the past year was coming out, and they were looking for Liesl, who was like 18. I was like,
yes, yeah. I mean, you could do so much in that. Yeah, just keep playing it, and then it's great, for you to be a Maria and then to get to be a Mother Abbess. Yeah. I mean, you know it inside out, And I think that's also another thing for me too, is that, I'm not somebody who, when people ask me, hey, do you like this actress or this actress? I'm like, how can you even compare people, right? Yeah. Every Maria that I've gotten to do it with is so different. Mm-hmm. I mean, you cannot even compare them, and everyone brings their own circumstances to it. So that just, the way you were saying lines, I was like, I've never heard this line said like this before. This is amazing, And it's the people you get to work with too that just throw you a different curveball, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna throw that one back. I just gotta figure out how to do it. Yeah, the show, the writing is so rich. Everything about the writing is so. We were also fortunate because the producers of the tour were Rodgers and Hammerstein Corporation. Mm. So we had Ted Chapin in there, who was like the number one guy who knows everything about Rodgers and Hammerstein. He was giving us stuff, and then we also had the Krause family, Russell Krause, who wrote the show, right? His children were involved in the production. Oh, so they were telling me stories about when their dad was writing this show, right? And that all of that made it so rich that I still think, I could perform that role, I think, for 50 more years and not even be done with it. There's just so much. But it was a big part of it was because of how I got to learn it. Yeah. I'd never learned it in any other way than that way, and that's super special.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. So, you talked about how the company, the producers, did a really good job about either changing up blocking, or the director did such a fantastic job of giving you endless material to be able to work on. So if that kept you sustained artistically throughout the tour, I know that everybody has a different story when it comes to touring. So how was touring? Did it teach you anything about you as a person? I just want to know all about it.
Yeah. Touring was fun. I had done other tours. I toured in London with the National Gilbert and Sullivan Opera Company, and that was like a 6-month contract, I think. And then I had also done sort of run-out tours where you're out for 2 weeks, or you're out for a weekend or something like that. But this was, when you get the contract for this type of tour, it's for a set amount of time, 6 months or a year. You don't know if that's going to be renewed. So you kind of go out thinking, okay, well, I'll do this. I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to, pack for a year, prepare everything for a year. And then it gets another year, and then it gets another, and then it keeps going. And by the way, that tour, I was in the original cast in 2015. It went equity. I was on the equity tour. Then it went non-equity. Then it went international, and now it's back out equity. So it has been touring since 2015. It just never stopped.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Touring taught me so much. I think I jumped in, and I think this is my advice to anybody who jumps in on touring for the first time, or if you're going on a tour for the first time. It's your chance to see our country too. Mm-hmm. And I think I with everything that's going on, with all the craziness of our country, I got this appreciation for our country, because I thought, my gosh, I just saw the Red Forest yesterday. Now I'm in the Mojave Desert. Yeah. Now I'm back in New England eating lobster in Maine, and you just see the country. So dive in. Every city I went to, I made a list. I was I gotta hit my things. I got my coffee shops, food in that New Orleans. What's the great food there? Texas. What are we getting? Barbecue, right? I made my list of different foods, different museums. I saw, like, I feel like I've been in every museum in the country. Wow. I had my list of things to do. So during the day, if we weren't called in for any kind of put-in rehearsal or anything like that, I would just go see the city, right? And I would get sleep. That was the main thing. I had to make sure I got tons of sleep because Sound of Music is a big sing for everybody. There's nobody who escapes the singing. No. Well, maybe the men a little bit, in the male ensemble a little bit. But in our production, the men still had to sing quite a bit. And so you've got to just take care of yourself. I think that's like the one thing that I learned too. You're going on airplanes and it's sucking the oxygen, or sucking the water out of your body. You're going between time zones. Sometimes, you finish up a show and Sound of Music is long. You're finishing at 11 o'clock at night, but then the next night you're flying to a different time zone. So you're finishing at what feels like 1 o'clock in the morning to your body, even though you're in the new place. And the equity tour that we were on had a minimum. I think we had to be in a city for 1 or 2 weeks. We were not a bus and truck like every night. Yeah. Most places when we opened in LA, we were there for a couple months, then we were in Dallas for a couple months. But a couple of things that I learned too about touring as far as myself goes, when you're on tour, you cannot get away from everybody, and sometimes you need moments of solitude. I need to I started to get sick of hotel rooms after a while, so I would get Airbnbs. And I had just gotten married too. So I got married August 1st. We started rehearsals for that Sound of Music like August 14th or 15th. And then I left in September. Oh, wow. And I didn't even have a honeymoon yet, wow. Right? I left. I'm fortunate my husband is an actor and he is also a really lovely person. So he got it and we would come back and forth. He would come out, I would come home. And then we got to do our honeymoon like 6 months later or something like that. But also keeping that, that kept me grounded too. Like having, making sure we were FaceTiming every day, and like we had to be sure that we had time for each other, and making time for each other. You really have to just make the time. I think that's something that carried me through. You really just have to make time for your people. You got to make time for your friends, your family, people you're in relationships with. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot. I could keep talking about that forever. But
touring's this whole separate thing.
It is,
right?
Yeah, it really is.
And
but it's so fun. I love to travel, and now I've performed in 48 states. 48 of the 50 states.
Cool.
Yeah. So my only 2 states that I haven't been to or performed in are Hawaii and Alaska, which it's on the bucket list.
Yes, that's my mom. My mom's been to all 49 states except for Alaska.
Really?
So,
oh my gosh, she's almost there.
Yeah, so 2016. Back in Operaland, let's talk about the Mikado. So for listeners who don't know, what is the Mikado and why is your name wrapped around the show in so much of the Gilbert and Sullivan world?
Yeah. So the Mikado is, a opera was written in the 1800s, late 1800s, and it's the basic premise is that, when you would go see older traditional productions of it, you would see a lot of white people dressed up as Japanese people, doing the show, right? And when they wrote it, the original thing was they were, as all Gilbert and Sullivan is, they're making fun of the British. They're making fun of their own people, right? But the controversy comes in with when you have people putting on yellow face makeup and doing this, and of course, it's offensive to a lot of people. And I'm half Asian, so my mom is an immigrant from Taiwan. She came from Taiwan. My father is New York City Irish, right? Part of the controversy that happened in 2016 was that there were productions running of the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Players' production of the Mikado that people were in yellow face, right? And somebody saw this and said, this is not okay. and started to like push back with it. And it was the person who was doing that was half Asian also. And so what happened was then their productions got canceled. I was actually still on tour when this was happening, but their productions got canceled. So then they asked me if I could they decided, okay, we're gonna shut down this production, we're gonna redo it. Can you be on this artistic advisory board to help with this? So I said, yeah, sure. That's, for me, it was like one of the first times that I think I had done a production where I was in the production, but I was also involved in it in this way that was, it was activism. I was advocating for people, for my own people. And it held suddenly it had this other level of meaning for me. When you can like use your art to like better the world, better something for people, that's super, super fulfilling, right? So I said, yeah, of course I'll do this. And so I was on tour, but I was on, Zoom meetings. Actually, we weren't even doing Zoom that much then. That's like before the pandemic. But I was on like FaceTime meetings and like on phone calls and stuff. And then whenever I was on a layoff from tour and I was back in New York, I would go to meetings and they were asking us a lot of questions like, people are in kimonos. If they are in kimonos, how do we respectfully do that? I'm not Japanese, but Scott Watanabe, Scott was in a lot of Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, all over the world, very good Japanese American performer, and he could advise on things like that, right? So they redid the production, and we had a part in that. I still think that they could have gone further with that. There's still, and this is but I was also at the same time happy that it was just being talked about. And I think too, when something like that happens, we have to talk about it. We can't shove it under the rug. I'm glad that didn't happen. And there's still so much work to be done. And I always think, especially with, anything that is involving racism or involving people's race in any way, we still have so far to go. But also, I used to think there was going to be, one day we'll solve the problem. Yeah. And I think that is, I don't think that anymore, actually. I think it's something, and that's not a bad thing. I don't mean that to sound negative or hopeless. It's that it is something that we have to constantly work for and think about. And I was in the production. The reason that I'm sort of connected to it in this way too was I was in the production when the person saw the picture of me on the front. They said that I was in yellow face, right? So that's a very difficult question. Yeah. I'm Asian. Am I in yellow face? Yeah. It was, and I have to say it was a hard time, very hard for me, because as a mixed race person too, you get questioned about this kind of stuff. Yeah. People always almost say, when I say I'm mixed race, they say, oh, you look Asian, or you don't look Asian, and it's about your looks. Suddenly somebody says,
it's like you're not enough, or
you're not a person, or you're, what. So there's already this sensitivity to that, right? I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that this person was actually doing something good, that was bigger than me, that was bigger than my own personal feelings about my own experience. And I do appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. So that's sort of how I was involved in it. Unfortunately, there's still so much work to be done with that. Yeah. And I think that work goes on. And part of my work too is in New York. I am so fortunate because I am part of a big Asian American Broadway community. Yeah. Then I do a lot of stuff with the National Asian Artists Project that's run and started by Byork Lee, who is, a legend with Chorus Line and an advocate for Asian American artists. And I'm so fortunate because I have a lot of friends who are Asian American theater writers, musical theater writers, so I get to do a lot of new musicals written by Asian composers and lyricists, or about the subject of, of the Asian American experience.
Yeah.
So I contributed to that redoing of this Mikado. I still think it can keep going further, but I love that I can also, as an Asian American performer, support these new voices in Asian American theater and musical theater, because we have to. And I mean, this as a singer, and I'm always telling people, like, if we don't sing this music, or if we don't put this stuff out there, it just sits, it sits on a computer, it sits on a page, and no one will ever hear it. I do feel as an artist that it's my responsibility to do that, because the composer can't just get out there and do their own stuff. We have to do it. And when we get the opportunity to get to work in something like that, where people are writing new shows about those subjects with Asian Americans in the cast, that's the way to sort of combat all of the controversy and the things that have happened in the past that are, that we still need to work on. So I've found that my balance with that is doing new works and supporting Asian American composers.
How do you think your view of the Mikado has changed since before and after you were in it?
Yeah, every time I've been in it, as an actor, of course, you're not judging your character, you're going into it thinking about this person. The character that I always played was Kadisha, which I actually think is a very well-written character. I think one of the themes that I love about Gilbert and Sullivan's writing and the Mikado is that the older, weird side characters, which are the ones that I always play, which I'm all about because I love that actually, they find love in the end. And you can be, and I love that the older characters and these quirky people find love, and they always get what they come in for. They want something, and they actually always get it. And I think that's a great lesson that, you can be in your 70s, don't give a pope. You got love, you can have love, you can have everything you want, And that they were writing that in the 1800s is so cool. And we've lost a little bit of that. So I think seeing that, you go, oh my God, of course, old people can be in love, you can get what you want. And so I think I've been always, I'm approaching the characters, this human person, which they were actually very good at writing human characters, really. So in that way, that hasn't changed. But I think what is challenging for me is thinking of new ways to do that stuff, right? And because the music actually is so beautiful, the dialogue is actually really great. It's complicated. It's Victorian dialogue. It's almost like doing Shakespeare. But I always ask myself, if you were to direct the Mikado, how would you do this? And I literally have not found the answer yet. I think some people have, but it is such a complex question, and it's hard for me because I think it's also so personal. So I think that's where the change has happened, where I think of it a little bit from an outside perspective and go, okay, how do we approach this? This is not something, I'm very much of the mindset that if we start censoring art, especially in the times that we're in, we can start to go down a real slippery slope. When we look to the past, it was the first thing that Hitler started doing, was censoring things and banning books, right? So it's like, oh, this is a tough question, right? What do we do with something like this? And I've always been of the mindset, we cannot start censoring things.
Yes, it's hard, but it's hard for a reason.
It's hard for a reason. And I think when things are hard, that's the opportunity for discussion and growth.
Yes.
And that's fantastic. Yeah. That's exciting, actually. I think that's where these things are moving forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Opera, as a form, is kind of struggling to stay relevant in the modern age. Do you see a way forward to, or I guess not do you, but it's such a beautiful art form. How do you see a way forward to connect it with future generations?
Yeah, I think we're in New York. There's so many great companies here, and I've worked a lot with American opera projects. which is such a cool company, AOP. They have a composers thing where they bring in composers, and you have this residence for I can't remember how long it is, but the composers have to take acting classes and singing classes to know how to write for singers, and that pushes the art form forward.
Yeah.
New opera, and there's actually so much cool new opera happening. Now the Met usually has at least one in the season, a new opera. They just did one about Amelia Earhart that was written by Janine Tesori, who wrote, tons of musical theater for us, right? And American opera, new opera, is sort of bridging this gap between musical theater and opera, which is so cool. So, who did I just read? Oh, Jessie Mueller's doing something at the Met very soon, a new opera.
And she was in the Mets, or no, was it Lincoln Center? The concert version of, I thought that it was the Met, the concert version of Carousel.
Yes.
Yes.
And Carousel, the actual, she did it with Jack O'Brien. Full circle backwards. She's, and then, Kelly O'Hara was in The Hours with Renee Fleming and Joyce DiDonato, So there's this, I think that's kind of the answer, where we really are bridging this gap. A lot of times, like some, people I had a few friends who are working at American Opera Projects who would contact me and say, hey, we're looking for a musical theater performer that's like this. Can you give us some contacts, right? Because we know you work in both worlds, right? And I was like, yeah, sure, and then we've got opera singers with musical theater performers in the same show, which is very cool. And then the subject, also the other thing, I think pushing opera forward is the subject matter of the operas, right? We're not doing all period works. I worked actually through American Opera Projects with the composers from NYU that were in the Master's Musical Theater Writing Program.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and they had to take a class where they had to compose operas, right? So we did this, the theme of the whole set of operas was women's rights. And actually, maybe I'm saying that wrong, I should go look it up, but women's reproductive rights, right? So that encompassed a lot of stuff like abortion, but also IVF. We were doing operas about these subjects, and never in my life have I ever done that before, right? And even doing opera and having it feel like it's a contemporary play, or that it's like TV, right? Because the subject is current and it's something that we're all thinking about. So I think that's the way that it moves forward. We keep writing operas, and there's been this influx of new opera writing because these new opera programs are funded, right? And we have to just keep funding these things so that
support the arts.
Support the arts. Subtext, support the arts.
Yes.
So I think that's the way. I think the new subjects or interesting subjects, and let these composers write new shows. Get them writing new shows. Give them the support for that.
So speaking of new shows, what was it like? You just world premiered a musical.
Yeah.
This is not a drill.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was fun, and that was exactly what writing a new musical is, right? So it was an off-Broadway show at the York Theater, which is known for always doing new musicals, right? And we had a great team. Gabriel Barry, who is he's known for doing new musicals. He did The Wild Party with Idina Menzel and a while ago. But he is somebody who's actually known for directing new musicals and developing new musicals, which is its own project, right? Developing a new musical means, and in this case, actually, we were really fortunate because we had the two composers and the book writer in the room with us every single day. Yeah. So it was literally yes, there was that, right? I mean, that's the hard part about developing a new musical. You have to memorize the stuff, but not be so stuck to it that when you throw in one little word, it's not gonna throw you off. But the fortunate thing about having the writers in the room was, we literally could say, so this feels a little weird on the tongue. I think I could naturally say it better naturally like this, and we were lucky. Joe McDonough, who was the book writer, was like, yeah, no problem. And then they would just cancel it out, stage manager will put into the script, new page, right? And it's constant, like, new page. But I love, as much as I work in Rodgers and Hammerstein and old school opera and everything, I love developing new musicals and or doing new operas. You know, the development of a new musical is this art form. You could do an entire podcast just on what this is. Yeah. Because it takes a certain type of performer to be flexible. I literally, at one point during that show, we were still in previews, and they cut one of my scenes in half. They put it into halfway through one of my musical numbers and rewrote, and we did that at 10 a.m. and we had to perform it in front of an audience at 2 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I remember just going, we rehearsed it, and there were a lot of props involved and all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, am I gonna remember this? And I just had to sit, just go through that thing in my head over and over and over again, and we did it. And luckily, I was so fortunate. I had Kelvin Moonlow, who was the original Ortho in Beetlejuice, right, Broadway veteran, and Sam Poon, who was in The King and I, and the three of us were a family, and we had to do this scene together and do this song together. I was so fortunate because those two guys are so fantastic. We are like BFFs in this show, and we just supported each other. And I think we actually had a fantastic cast of great people, experienced people who just said, it's okay. If you mess it up or if you forget it, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going, yes. And that was great. It was actually a really fun, always challenging experience, but like super, super fun because I just had the best castmates. They were incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you just finished a little bit of to more recent things. You just finished A Christmas Carol this holiday season, and I'm wondering what your own personal version of Christmas past, present, and future would look like.
Yeah, well, I was thrilled because this was my fourth production of A Christmas Carol. I did a play for I think 6 years total of Christmas Carol. Did a play. I did. I got my equity card when I was in college at North Shore Music Theater doing their version of A Christmas Carol, and then this was the Alan Menken Christmas Carol. So I'd never done that before. And our Scrooge was in the original production of that at Madison Square Garden. That show was written for Madison Square Garden. And I got to also play Mrs. Fezziwig, so I played, and this was one of these roles where I came out as a caroler who was the ghosts. The director did this genius thing where he made the carolers the ghosts, or the ghosts the carolers, I should say, in the beginning.
Like a Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yeah, totally. And then I went into a blind old hag, who was who was Ghost of Christmas Future in this version. Then I got to play Mrs. Fezziwig. Then I went to Blind Old Hag. Then I went back to Ghost of Christmas Future. So all I did was quick change the whole show and put on makeup and take off old age makeup and put it on and take it off. And I loved that. And it was my version of that, and this is maybe like a controversial take on it, but my version for the Ghost of Christmas Future was that all of those characters, Blind Old Hag, Mrs. Fezziwig, are all part of Ghost of Christmas Future who were with Scrooge his whole life and actually were influencing him his whole life. And then when he gets to the final, like, hey, you're messing up, like, you need to, like, change before you die, right? Which I, in no words at all, because I don't have any lines, is future. That was kind of like the lead up to that. So it was so fun for me. And ironically, while I was doing that, I was also during the day preparing for what I'm leaving for on Monday. I'm doing South Pacific with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, with Rob Berman, who conducts, is a Grammy Award-winning conductor, and Ben Crawford, who a lot of people know from Phantom. So, and I get to play Bloody Mary again, which I love. So back to Rodgers and Hammerstein, So it's like busy times.
Well, I'm so glad I was able to catch you before.
I know. That's why I was like, yay! We get these like 2 hours where we get to do this.
That is so perfect. So you're excited about. Yeah, so I guess I don't need to ask you that question because we already know what you're doing in the beginning of 2026. All right, so we end each episode with 10 rapid-fire theater trivia questions, since on this podcast, we all got here by just being your average theater kid. And if you get at least 7 correct, you get bragging rights.
Oh my God. Oh.
It's no pressure.
Let's all remember I came from classical music,
yes.
so.
Hey, I did put some opera ones in.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Which opera features the song, I am the very model of the modern Major General?
The Pirates of Penzance.
Perfect. In what musical do Julie Jordan Bigelow, Aunt Nettie, Carrie Pepperidge, and Enoch Snow sing about attending a real nice clam bake?
Carousel.
Yeah. Which of the following is not one of Fräulein Maria's favorite things? Raindrops on roses, bunnies in spring, packages tied up in string, warm woolen mittens.
Bunnies in spring.
Heck yeah. With songs like One and What I Did for Love, the classic 1970s musical, centers around Broadway dancers auditioning for 8 spots in what stage show?
Chorus line.
Yes. Which one of Gilbert and Sullivan wrote the lyrics to their works?
Oh, Gilbert.
Yes. What were Gilbert's 2 forenames?
William Schwenk Gilbert. William Schwenk. W.S. Gilbert. Did you say 2 out of 4? William Schwenk.
Yes. That's correct. What lyricist and composer who died in 2021 had a Broadway theater named for him on the occasion of his 80th birthday?
Stephen Sondheim.
Yes. What classic Broadway musical, adapted for film in 1961 and again in 2021, features warring New York City gangs known as the Jets and the Sharks?
West Side Story.
With over 10,000 performances, what performance is the longest running show in Broadway history?
Ooh. Phantom?
Yes.
Oh! Woo! That wasn't that rapid. That one took us. I was like, Cats, Phantom, Cats, Phantom.
Yes, no, I'll show it to you later. There's this beautiful video of like at one of the final the performance where Phantom surpassed Cats.
Yeah.
One of the cats comes, I think Victoria comes on stage, and there's this amazing picture of Victoria like handing off the baton to Phantom. It's very cool.
I love it. Oh, you gotta send it to me.
Yes.
Text it to me.
And then finally, which American opera house was the first to ever broadcast a live opera on radio?
I'm gonna say the Met.
Yes.
Yes! I used to listen to the Met broadcast.
Oh.
Wait, is that it?
Yes.
Did I get them all?
All of them right.
Oh my gosh! So I get bragging rights?
Yes, you do.
Yes! Okay, I was super nervous about that.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Kathleen.
Oh, Morgan, thank
Cannot
you.
do enough.
Oh, please. When you said it, when you asked me, I was like, yes, absolutely. Thanks for doing this. This is so great. And congrats on everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.